Xperia, right? Smartphone created by Sony, right? So this might be something you kind of forgot about for whatever reason. I want to share this with you, all right? This is going to be good for the outline. Now, this is not some abandoned, technology from Sony. Now, it may have not like completely won over everybody in the past, maybe due to prices and so on, but it's still available. Like they have these bundles. It's expensive. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, Xperia 1, 5, 256 gigabyte, whatever. There's other options. It's still available for sale. Why would I point out some of these things? Well, I'm going to get to that as well. But basically speaking, here's some recent reports. All right, this was back on June 23rd. Says Sony won't stop making Android phones. Right, and it said basically Sony's Xperia lineup of Android phones has never been particularly popular, and despite the high sky pricing making them almost impossible to recommend, the company isn't throwing in the towel. I want you guys to pay attention to this. The towel anytime soon, as Sony just committed to years of further Android releases. I want you to listen to this just for a brief moment. We'll kick it more into what we have, obviously, with this outline, or it will all make sense to you. In a press release, Sony and Qualcomm announced a multi-year deal to continue bringing Snapdragon chips to Xperia smartphones, both in the premium and mid-range tiers. Qualcomm Tech announced it was extending its collaboration with Snapdragon platform powering Sony's future smartphones. The companies agreed to work together on the next generations of premium, high, and mid-tier smartphones. Now, in regards to some of this, right? Some people are going to say, well, this is a nothing burger, Max. What the hell does this have to do with Jasmy other than that Sony connection? I get where you're coming from. But what I want to state is this right here. And that is, even internationally, Sony only makes up a very small chunk of the market. Japan, Sony's home market, is among the most popular. And even there, Sony has been seeing a decline. Now, how can you take things to the next level if you've been seeing a decline? Don't you need to embrace brand new innovative technologies, and if anything, tied into what? Blockchain. Yeah, you do. Well, with that said, I want to show you guys just a tad bit more. And 3 days ago, it was reported from this outlet, which is basically pocketnow.com, states Sony's Xperia 5 III gets a massive 40% discount, right? They recognize that probably it's just too expensive. But maybe with supply chain issues, and no, this is not a XDC segment, but maybe with supply chain and other connections that they made, you can significantly lower the cost, right? It says take advantage of the latest deals on Amazon, where you can find, as we speak right now, Sony Xperia 5, 3, and more on sale. 40% discount is not too shabby, right? That brings in more people. Well, where exactly am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is basically this right here, and check this out for yourself. Let's share this. It states, our strength is the Japanese quality, represented by Sony, as in Jasmy, right? Because this is a Jasmy segment. And other manufacturing powers. They believe that the fact that your service is provided by a Japanese manufacturer or company alone can give you a sense of safety and security. A company like this can create a very high credit value just by itself. And if we go further than that, we are going to create and generate value. In the future, blockchain tech will be widely used, especially on IoT devices, for example, on computers, you better believe it, smartphones, and other wearable devices. This part is not highlighted. They're going to accelerate their efforts in making such devices freely available on the Jasmy platform. So we talked about the concept of super wallet. Let's face it, most of us are probably going to use the super wallet on our smartphone. So again, where is Max going with this? Well, that's a great question. And I want to show you guys this, because you know what? It's not about necessarily, as the saying goes, what you know, is who you know and who they are connected to. Now, we put so much focus, obviously, on Kunitake Ando, Kazumasa Sato, a little bit of Hara, right? He's basically that guy who's like the spokesperson, if you will, for the Jasmy brand. But this guy deserves a very good mention, okay? And for some of you guys that have been following Jasmy for years, you may feel as though that this guy's a nothing burger. He is not. And I understand that in the past, other people have brought you the news in regards to this. I have a little bit more of that extended research to provide. So even though you may think you know all about this, and I mean this respectively, there's some other things that I recently have learned that I feel as though is really worth pointing out. All right. Masanobu Yoshida, at the time back then, president of Sony's handheld computer company in Hong Kong, to launch his company's flagship. Now, keep in mind, when we saw Jasmy go over to Hong Kong, some people would feel as though that was kind of a stretch. Why are you going over to Hong Kong? Is it because, Hong Kong wants to take some of your technology and implement into their 15-minute cities and so on? Well, you got to keep in mind, Hong Kong in itself has a different stance. They are one of the last places of mainland China that has a little bit of that democratic, I guess you could say, old democracy point of view of things, and so a little bit different type of culture, right? So, if you're going to compare Hong Kong to Beijing, it's still, for the most part, not necessarily a night and day difference, but there is a big difference, right, with the culture and the way people look at things. You got to keep in mind, I mean, this was a place that used to be part of the British monarchy up until 1998, I believe. Okay, so this guy, right? He's with the flip phone. This is back in November 2002. And you guys know I do these types of things, right? Some of the deep dives about this. I swear, this is not a nothing burger. This is some good stuff. Smash that like, pay attention to this. So, he's displaying some of these ideas and so on. And on this other one I want to jump into is this right here. And basically, it's on his profile, right? This is, again, all the way back on August 5th of 2021. But on this outline, it says Jasmy Executive Team Interview, Video and Project Introduction, Part 2 from Masanobu, I got to get that right, Yoshida, right? And also Kazumasa Sato. I think I've seen this video. I didn't have it handy. And nonetheless, when I went to look at it on YouTube, it was set to private, so I wasn't even able to share it. But here we go, right? It says, hello, his name is Masanobu Yoshida. He started his career at Sony as a developer and video camera engineer. Now, think about this for a moment, right? We know that when Kunitake Ando shared the stage with Steve Jobs back in 2005, roughly, Steve Jobs was displaying that new Sony HD camcorder, and at the time that thing was very expensive. I think it was like $3,500, but it was very innovative to a sense because it was a brand new HD technology, and the point was Apple being able to take that tech and put it into their phone, right? And of course, the rest is history. Well, this guy apparently was the brains behind that. That's why I want to point that out. Video camera engineer. States later on he was responsible for cell phone development and the PDA business, which was the predecessors of today's smartphones. So when we talked about Kunitake Ando and the Apple connection with Steve Jobs and so on in the past, like I mentioned, that Kunitake Ando, a pioneer of IoT. This guy is also a pioneer of smartphones. Now, again, if you don't understand some of this stuff, it's okay. If you're brand new, it's okay. Excuse me, gotta make sure I'm not muted. I want to show you this because, when we talk about PDA, you may be thinking, I don't know what PDA means. PDA basically means production data acquisition. It's also called PDE or also PDC, and it's data collection about a company's processes. When it comes to Jasmy, it's all about what? Personal data lockers, personal data management. But what about also a collection of companies' processes, right? It also goes on to mention that this is deliberate monitoring, tracking, collection of production or operating data in ways that make it useful and relevant in attaining macro production or productivity goals of, for an example, an organization. So the concepts of Society 5.0 being fulfilled, that's one of the key things I want you to take away from this. Now, as I jump back to this, I want to get into a little bit more about this. And where it states this right here, right? PDA was loved by customers worldwide with the CLIE brand. After that, he, as in Yoshida, worked at SoftBank Mobile as a managing executive officer. He was a managing executive director, in fact, with overall responsibility for terminal and service development. During that time, the development of the iPhone, which was the first, basically launched in Japan in 2008, was impressive. He would like, of course, to take the opportunity to explain, but bottom line is this. Everyone says that the next big thing after the smartphone, and listen to this part, is the Internet of Things, and he agrees. What is one of the key things we have pointed out for months now, doing these deep dives here at CTN? And that is, these guys are the pioneers of all this, but they have unfulfilled dreams, and they also have that vision of fulfilling, I guess you could say, their aspirations of these concepts. Society 5.0, with the Internet of Things, you name it. Now, what I want to, of course, just get into here also, and this is not going to be the deepest dive of deepest dives. It may seem that way, but it's not. I want to get into this. And let me get to that screen real quick. Basically speaking, is this right here. Masanobu Yoshida, I'm just going to call him Yoshida because it's a lot easier, started Dreamforest Corp. Now, you may be wondering, like, I have no idea what that is. Get to the point of why that's important. I swear I will. This is an IoT integration service company that created Tatsujin, network of specialists. All right, let's take you over to the Dreamforest site. When we go over here, of course, most of this is in Japanese and so on. And I'm not going to get into all this because, like, obviously it can't, even with the interpretation, all right? But I did find some key things I want to point out to you. And where it says business content characteristics, and this is good stuff. It says, we are a company that can handle everything from IoT planning, development, and design to outsourcing manufacturing to EMS. Really? Now, you got to keep in mind, this guy, and I'll show you this later, he retired from the Jasmy team, I believe, in 2021, okay? But, again, all these guys are well connected. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not what you know, it's who you know and who they are connected to. Hence why I use the examples of, who is your plug? Who is your connect? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's IoT, you name it. If you're just, or even if you're a business, right? You have to have some good connections, right? Especially when it comes to business, right? Especially if you're a startup. It says IoT ideas come from various industries, and industries, it says it twice, probably because of this. This is the Japanese English interpretation. I apologize. But it says it's a very long road from planning hardware suitable for IoT services. And it is. This guy is so well connected that he is Jasmy's connect to a whole other world that we didn't even know might have even existed as far as what has gone on in the background. Again, it could very well be, and I'm not saying for sure, but again, the Jasmy connection to Hong Kong was this guy from based off what we saw. Many IoT projects cannot overcome. Oh, let me go back for a second. Hardware suitable for IoT services to select EMS in mass production. I didn't want to dismiss this part. Mass production. What are we trying to solve when it comes to Jasmy? We're trying to get that mass production, that mass adoption. Just like the example I made earlier about, ISO 222, right? That flip of the switch is not going to happen unless we get, for instance, full implementation first. So this guy is very well connected. And this statement about mass production, I thought was worth pointing out. Now, I'm not going to end right here. Many IoT projects cannot overcome the barrier of initial cost. True. Planning and development costs, mold costs, prototype costs, which is a serious issue, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. They do not have any full-time employees, but once a project is decided, they make maximum use of the networks that they had in the days of Sony. Using that reference, again, back to Sony. Why would they want to do that? Because Sony has more than proven itself when it comes to their products. Maybe they didn't do a great job here when it comes to the marketing, but who didn't love a Sony Walkman back in the day, or Sony PlayStation? You get where I'm going with this. You even mentioned SoftBank. It says gather the right people in the right places, build an efficient development system to maximize costs in a short period of time. Could we very well see Jasmy start to maximize, like it says, some of the things that they're trying to do in regards to cost in a short period of time? Now, there's some recent FUD that's happened with Jasmy. Has there not been? Yes, there has been, and I had to keep reminding people, not you guys, but a lot of the newcomers, on crypto Twitter, they'll point out, I don't understand. Bitcoin is down. Ethereum is down. Why is Jasmy down? Jasmy runs in correlation between those two. But also keep in mind, like we showed with you guys last Monday, that we are going to get a surge with altcoins. And maybe very well that even though there's enough evidence to say that BTC will always have its dominance, there's also going to be a period of time where altcoins will have their dominance too. If you believe in the whole concept of utility run, that's not too far off, is it? No, it's not. It says you can get the effect. Members can be gathered from a wider range of networks, so on and so forth, right? But yeah, major products, technologies, product service overviews, and application examples. Just a little bit more about this, because it's a big deal, in my opinion. They develop capabilities. That's their greatest strength. Again, this guy might have felt as though that he is not able to, share his greatest strengths with his position of where he was at with Jasmy. But moving on to this, again, being partnered with some of these guys and so on, that is a big deal. And as we know, when it comes to the Internet of Things, Society 5.0, and what they're trying to solve over in Japan and also abroad in that Southeast Asian sector, it's not just the concept of one company getting it done. Hence why I've always used that example of a Hollywood production. Is it just one director? Is it just one producer? Is it just one actor? No, it is a collaboration of many talented and skilled individuals to come together and solve one big, great thing. You can apply that to, for instance, Society 5.0. Our human network can cover all these areas. In particular, we specialize in light, thin, short, and small design wireless technology. Wireless technology? Yeah, cultivate during our time at Sony. Again, applying the experience that they had at Sony and applying it towards what? Society 5.0, or the fourth industrial revolution, wherever you want to refer to it as, or a combination of both. Says they have a track record in developing wireless sensors equipped with Bluetooth. How many times did we showed you guys some of the recent partnerships, right? Remember a few days ago, talking about the one in which instead of scanning your fingerprint, scanning your finger, your actual veins, because that's supposed to be more secure and it's supposed to be even more efficient than just pressing a stupid thumbprint on your phone. I've done that. Doesn't work every time. We need something that is more consistent. You could say that that's a scalability issue as well. Now, look at this for a second. We did talk about iPhone in the past, or recently, I should say. Certification approval. They do have an Apple certified MFI made for the iPhone. Huh. That's interesting, is it not? We talked about Android earlier, but what about the iPhone? Again, this guy pitched some of these things in regards to the iPhone many years ago. Talk about Internet of Things, are we not? Actual introduction, golf swing sensors. Why am I showing this? If you're new to Jasmy and you don't understand this yet, it's okay. Again, I have lots of info, deep dive research for you guys. But my key thing is this. This is another example of the Internet of Things. If you have golf swing sensors, that records data, does it not? Sometimes when I see people talk about Jasmy, they have the attitude that, I don't really get the whole concept of a data locker. Like they want to, and I hate to use this example, but it's true. It's kind of like Gilbert Verdian talking about walled gardens and silos. You want to take a personal data locker and you just want to put it in one thing. It doesn't just apply to one thing. It applies to just that, the Internet of Things. This is an example of many Internet of Things because it takes that data. Where does it take the data? stores it, for instance, in a personal data locker. That personal data locker makes sure that this data only gets to who needs to get the data, right? And if anything, if a company like, I don't know, you get what I'm saying. Ping is a company. Callaway Golf, right? Some of you guys golf. I haven't golfed yet. I want to do it in the future. I think it's a great way of, hiking, exercising, and I like that. But my point is, this is one of many Internet of Things, right? So that data only gets monetized if you choose to allow, for instance, Ping or Callaway or whoever take that data for they can share it and so on. And then they also, because all this is transparent, they have to make sure that they are compliant with that data as well. It's a win-win all the way. They got product summaries censored attached to golf clubs. I even talked about, some of these other use cases. This is, again, another utility layer, if you will, because the Internet of Things is not just 2 or 3 things. Many different things. But you like the idea that they give you some of these examples. The sensor, accelerator, all this stuff. Wireless communication tells you which ones are compatible. Jointly develop with Access. Registered trademark or Dreamforest Co. Here's an example. Ball with built-in sensors. Really? Baseball? We talk about Sega and Tosu, right? And how big that is, at least for them. For some of us over here, we're like, I don't know, man. That whoop-de-doo. Sega and Tosu, who cares? That doesn't apply to me. Well, do we not understand that baseball is the biggest sport in Japan? Yeah, it is. Our America's pastime, if you will, was formerly our number one sport in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and I guess 50s, maybe even the early 60s, right? And of course, it's not no more, right? American football is, I know some of you guys are overseas. You get what I'm saying? Here in the United States, football, right? American football is our number one sport, but baseball still ranks up there. But this is Japan we're talking about. So a ball with sensor, like it's a ball with built-in sensors. All this is part of the Internet of Things. Has a built-in battery with 10,000 pitches actually used. Again, this guy is very, very well connected. And the icing on the cake for this part of the segment, and I know this is quite a deep dive and so on, but I'm glad to share this with you guys. I want to share this just a tad bit more with you guys. But what it mentions on the highlight for the services, boom. I can't highlight that, but right there, IoT product planning and development. There's your plug. There's your connect. So Yoshida, even though he's, not officially one of these executives for Jasmy anymore, he's still well connected. He is part of that greater scheme of things, that, collaboration, right? For the Internet of Things, for Society 5.0. IoT product planning and development, that's worthy of a mention. Now, you saw the other part where it's talked about Guru Network. And let's get into this for just a brief moment in regards to Dreamforest. What is the Tatsuin, if I pronounce that right, Tatsuin Network? Is a technical consulting service that solves customer technical problems and issues in a one-stop basis for forming a team of reliable experts in each field. We call them experts in our company. We've been judged by Dreamforest, our company. So this parent company that Yoshida is part of, right, oversees, if you will, the Tatsuin Network. Why point out Tatsuin Network, Max? And again, I understand probably not pronouncing it right. Well, right here, and I know you see patent firms, and we'll get into that in a second. They are a master and seasoned expert who have been trained in a large company. In addition, they can provide comprehensive services by forming a network with corporations. So again, guys, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just one getting it done. Many corporations that provide specialized services, certified bodies, EMS, law firms. You want to talk about being compliant? Yeah, Jasmy has been compliant from the get-go. They're the first regulated, compliant cryptocurrency in Japan. That's why they get the tag of the Bitcoin in Japan. It has nothing to do with the concept of, well, Bitcoin, doesn't have this and it doesn't have that. We understand that. I mean, if anything, maybe it's a stupid name, but you want to know something? Retail FOMO will eventually happen, and especially when we get back in the top 100, and we know that. But here's the juicy stuff. Patent firms. accounting firms, etc. Well, for one, Mr. Hara worked for an accounting firm and was KPMG. But this is the juicy part, patent firms. What did we show you consistently when it came to Kazumasa Sato? Recently, did he not put in for a new patent for Jasmy? Yes, he did. That's big. Who is the plug? Who is the connect? Yoshida, patent firm. You think these guys still don't talk? Trust me, they still do talk. And if I need to show you guys something in regards to that, I won't do it today, but maybe I'll show it to you tomorrow. I have this thing because I did more of a deeper dive into this. Kunitake Ando is part of this Japanese club of former Sony. It's like a club of these guys that get together and they share their stories. It's like a campfire thing. It's all in Japanese. And I tried to get the right interpretation. I even do the thing where you click on the closed caption to show it. And it's just, I'm just telling you, they talk so fast that the darn AI or whatever can't keep up with it. And as we know, we don't have anything, technically speaking, that's going to cipher through all that. Maybe in a year with ChatGPT or something else. It will. I can show you that on another one. But yes, all these guys show up to these things with Kunitake Ando and they share their time with Sony and they do it like every 2 weeks. And if you think I'm BSing you, I will show you that. I'll just show that to you like on tomorrow's show. Okay. So yes, the plug, the connect, the patent firms. How about this? Customers do not need to search for specialists from a vast recruitment search just by consulting. They can just consult with them for their concerns and so on. So this key thing, Dreamforest, that's what I want you to take away from here. Now, another thing I'm going to show you on this before we wrap things up on the Jasmy segment. If you're wondering about the company profile, because, let's face it, some of the fudders are going to be like, oh, like Hara, he's an AI, he don't exist. And Jasmy doesn't have a real office and all that stuff. I'm well ahead of them. Okay. Company name, Dreamforest Co. English name, Dreamforest Corporation. Locations at 1936 Konin Minato-ku, Tokyo area, Shingawa 13F. CEO is Masanobu Yoshida. It was established all the way back in 2011. Look what it says, especially here's more of that juicy stuff. Business content, Internet of Things system development and product planning. Boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. Yes, I do my proper deep dives for a reason. Okay? You can even find it on Google Maps if you're going to nerd it out. Very, very cool stuff. All right. And in closing, just in case you're wondering about Masanobu Yoshida, he was the former deputy president. He retired as of December 31st, 2021. And of course, Takashi Hagawara, head of software development, was appointed as director.